Hey lady, welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids, ages 9 down to 2 months, with 1 miscarried baby. It is my hope to help other women experience postpartum as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 60. Hi lady, I hope you are having the best Wednesday. This week's roundup of free things includes a couple of previously missed free things, because heaven forbid we get something that you didn't hear about. But 2 weeks ago, a mom gave us a meal, and it was a breakfast. It was meant for supper, but it was breakfasty themed food, and it was perfect because we ended up eating it, mostly me, honestly, eating on it for breakfast for an entire week. And here's the thing that's beautiful about it. Oftentimes, a mom or family gets lots of food early on, and some of it maybe goes into the freezer for later, but for the most part, right, you're going to eat it early on in those early weeks. But there are some things that have happened in the last couple of weeks that make it a perfect time to receive a new meal. Several months after the baby is born is often when dad is back to work. If the mom's working, she's probably back to work. Maybe the kids have gone back to school or other regularly scheduled activities. So in a lot of ways, the old routines have been picked up or new routines have been initiated. Perhaps commitments have been added back onto the plate or are being on-ramped. So several months after a baby is born can be a great time to give the gift of a meal. 2 weeks ago, that was what happened for us, and that was a real gift. And then last week, another friend texted me and said, hey, we have leftover meat, tortilla chips, and what was the third thing she said? Refried beans from getting a meal out at a Mexican place. Would you like them? I said, I'd love them. We tossed them in the freezer. I pulled them out this week. We had taco soup. I added a couple of things, obviously, to those ingredients. It was delicious. It was so thoughtful. The fact that she didn't want to waste food, which is very important to my heart as well, but that she used it to bless somebody else was very thoughtful. I thought all I had to do was pick it up, and then I was able to incorporate those ingredients into the menu last week. We also, for this week's free thing, got 2 new to us scooters. And if you know, you know. But gosh, what was this, like 15 years ago maybe, that Razor brand of scooters? They're fold up, they're silvery looking, and the power for them is your own legs. There's no motor on them. But somebody thought about us this week. The director at the local library knows my kids fairly well. We invited him to the baptism party, the sacraments extravaganza, a couple weeks back, and we've gotten to know him over time. When he was going through his garage doing some decluttering with his wife recently, they came across these scooters, and his youngest is now 18, so not really in his scooter phase anymore. And he thought of us and asked if we would like to have them. I said we would love to have them. I don't know how long we'll keep them around. We've had a couple of injuries with them already between the 3-year-old and the 7-year-old. But for whatever amount of time we are enjoying them, that was so kind. That was so kind. That's something I guess is important to put into. Sometimes we receive something from somebody that we enjoy for a short period of time, and then we pass it along or throw it away, fill in the blank. We don't use it forever. I don't think we need to hold on to things for a long period of time just because someone gave them to us if they're not actually adding benefit or value to our family. I just think it is a gift to be able to receive things and then to hold them loosely so that we can figure out over time, hey, is this something that makes sense and is good for our family, or is it just extra or clutter, etc.? All of that aside, let's talk today for this week about why I let strangers hold my baby or touch my baby. This is something that I see a fair amount on the internet, and I'm not sure to what extent it reflects real life, because you and I both know that sometimes things are hyped up on the internet, especially social media, that don't necessarily reflect the lived reality of any particular group of people. But let's say the audience that the social media content is geared towards or tailored to. But I do think it does reflect reality for a fair amount of women. And I also think that this social media content drives behavior for young women as well sometimes. I think social media can fill a void if as many people have experienced, young men and women both, if they did not grow up in a strong family culture, or if they did not grow up around a lot of babies or have siblings, to see how to treat babies. I don't mean like treating them, like taking care of their needs, but how to care for babies and how to incorporate babies into the life that you're living, like your life, how to live with babies. So I recognize that a lot of young women in particular, I'm saying this speaking to new mothers, a lot of mothers have perhaps not received a culture or received that heritage to know how to incorporate a baby into their life and how to integrate that baby into their relationships with other people, all the way from close family to acquaintances. But I've seen a fair amount of content, especially around when a baby might get sick. Maybe it's cold and flu season, for instance. And there is an attitude of antagonism or animosity that I observe that pits, I would say, the new mom against other people, even if those other people are her family. You and I both know, lady, I can only speak generally here. I can't speak to any one particular circumstance because, of course, this might be a prickly topic for you, and it could be for many reasons. And maybe those reasons are great and valid reasons, like you have a baby who was born prematurely, and that baby does have a vulnerable immune system, a particularly weakened immune system. Or maybe you have a very overbearing family member, hopefully not your spouse, but maybe a mother or a mother-in-law or someone close to you that you see oftentimes who just has absolutely no sense of where their bubble ends and your bubble begins. No sense of personal space whatsoever. Okay, of course I can't speak to those circumstances, but just from a general perspective, assuming a healthy baby, assuming a normal adult who is wanting to be close to and spend time with your child, maybe even a friendly looking stranger. That's more what I'm addressing here right now. And much of what I see online takes the tone of this person is a threat to your baby's health. And this person probably won't understand your boundaries. This person isn't going to be acting in the best interest of your baby, and you need to keep your baby away from them. You're protecting your baby from the big bad fill in the blank family member. I think that unnecessarily isolates new moms. If you can't rely on other people to hold your baby or touch and show love to your baby, even during cold and flu season, doesn't that put an awful lot of pressure on the mom in particular to do and be everything for her child? If we can't possibly trust even the people who should be closest to us, our blood relatives, if we can't even trust them, and we or our spouse are the only person that we can trust, what kind of pressure does that put on us? In contrast, what I would just propose, if maybe this idea sounds foreign to you, what I would propose is that it might be safe, and at a minimum you could experiment, but it might be safe to let other people in, to let other people love us, even if sometimes the way that they do so is going to be a bit different than what we would do, or might make us a little uncomfortable. Being a little uncomfortable sometimes doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. As an example, if a friend or family member offers to hold our baby, unless they are actively hacking up along, I'd say yes. Sometimes I will offer to my baby to hold to somebody who hasn't even asked yet. Just because I know sometimes people might get nervous, or they may be aware that there's a lot of social media saying, don't let anybody else touch or hold your baby. Our culture has so little contact with babies and treats them as in some ways so very fragile, even if we have no reason to think that they are, that we sort of put a bubble around them. But what if instead we invited them into our daily lives, including exposure to other people and even perhaps friendly strangers? There was a fundraiser meal that we went to a month or two ago, and there was a lady there, and she was looking at our little girl, and she made some type of very kind comment. And this was a church function fundraiser, and so I had a pretty good sense of the type of person that was going to be there, even though I had never met this lady. I didn't know her from Adam, but I had seen her a time or two previous. And I just said, I think I said, "Do you have any grandchildren?" And she did, but her grandchild was 6 states away or something, and she had not yet been able to meet the baby. And I said, "Well, would you like to hold mine?" And she held my daughter for half an hour while I got up and got food, got some of the other kids' food, along, my husband and I both got the other kids' food. And then we sat down and ate in peace with both hands, not one hand holding the baby and then the other hand eating. But this lady, who, according to social media conventional rules, ought not to have touched my baby, she held that baby. And it was such a gift to her as sort of a surrogate for the grandbaby that she has not yet been able to meet, and also as a great gift to me. There are many areas of life in which I experience a tendency to unnecessary anxiety or to unnecessarily being overly cautious about things. But I have been very gifted. I think growing up in a large family, honestly, had a lot to do with this. I've been most gifted in really holding very loosely the ability to share the baby with other people. And in a culture that doesn't get exposed to babies very often, we don't take them out and about with us oftentimes. That's something that I can offer as a way to put joy into the world, as a way to spread God's grace without saying anything at all, to show others that He loves them, simply by allowing them to hold this precious, beautiful, innocent child and to absorb something of the goodness of God from that child, who, frankly, is much closer to Him, I think, than many of us are, because they were more recently imagined into existence by Him than we were. For a lot of us, I think we sort of forget over time the connection that we had with God, but babies are so close. They know nothing else, and they were His before they were ours. For those reasons, I think if you have been used to holding your baby quite closely and not allowing other people to touch them and being worried that they'll get germs, I would just simply offer, what if you just sort of opened your hands? And what if you let other people, or even if you're going to be bold, even invited other people to hold your baby, in reasonable circumstances. I think it can be a great gift to them, to other people, and also to us. There was one other thing I was going to say on that point. Oh, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but especially having other older children, my perspective now on other people holding my baby is, my older children are actively often having their faces, like their eyeballs in her eyeballs. So the likelihood of my baby getting sick from her older brothers, in particular from her older brothers, is so much higher than from her getting sick from a stranger holding her for 15 minutes. The stranger doesn't usually lick the baby, right? I hope that serves you, lady. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon.